Good morning, friends. My name is Mindy Preddy. I'm an Executive National Vice President with Arbon, and I'm so excited to have Mo Boger here with us again this morning. And just wanted to thank you, Mo, for your time because we know you're super busy. We know you just got back into the States after, having some charity work that I'm so impressed by, and thank you for your heart. You're probably one of the smartest brainy boss ladies I know, and you have so much to share. And we're really excited to learn about mushrooms this morning. I want to geek out with you again. So, for those of you who don't know Mo, I just wanted to formally introduce her. She's a mom, she's a wife, she's an executive national vice president with Arbon, and a highly respected neuroscientist for 26 years. I don't even know if I started the recording, so I should do that, right? People are going to be really mad if we don't have this recorded. Hang tight. Oh, it is started already. All right, so there we go. I didn't have my fizz yet. All right, so Mo has studied everything from autism to Alzheimer's. She's a published author and functions now as a pro bono functional neuroscientist, and she's retired because of Arbonne. She worked as a professor at two UCs in California and also in NIH in Maryland and Arizona State. She was a research director for the #1 neuropsychiatric psychiatrist in the world and studied for the biggest brain bank of human brains on record. They studied concussive disorders in NFL football players and veterans exposed to traumatic brain injury and PTSD, along with the study of vaccines. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mo. And I think I should have had my mushrooms this morning, but I didn't. So can you take it over and help us out here?
I sure can. And you are so sweet. Thank you, Mindy. You guys, my most coveted title is as advocate. And I just want to say I'm so grateful for the business and the blessing of Arbonne because it allows me to be an advocate in a lot of different ways. And so I'm just so incredibly grateful. That's actually how this call came about. Mindy and I had the beautiful blessing of being able to partner for years now with an organization called Mission of Hope, where we've been able to be advocates for children in Haiti and now in the Dominican Republic because the border of Haiti is closed to the DR. And because of the refugee crisis, because of the food crisis, because of the gang crisis and the political crisis in Haiti, these kids and these families are in a world of hurt. If you are as old as I am, I'm 50 or will be in just a matter of months. And the Haitian children are the Ethiopian children of my generation, truly starving to death. And Mindy reached out to me and said, how can we help these babies even more? And I said, well, I'd like to do some calls. I'd like to get the brainy boss lady, out there. And what I mean by that is I got a lot of facts and information that I've been storing in my brain that a lot of people don't know about. And Mindy said, I'm going to buy your time for a call and I'm going to put that money towards feeding these babies. And I am just so grateful for her heart. She herself and her team have raised tens of thousands of dollars to feed these humans. And it is like the least that I can do to talk to you guys about something that I geek out on and really talk to you about something that in functional medicine we've been teaching about and talking about for millennia. And I want you to know that if you're a client today, I promise I will tailor this call to you. If you're a consultant or an Arbonne ambassador, I promise I will tailor this call to you as well, because I often feel like we in Arbonne do not know what we're sitting on. So as Mindy said, 16 years ago, I was invited to become an Arbonne ambassador. I really didn't know what it meant other than I had and always have been studying ingredients because what goes on me gets in me. Many of the chemicals that are around us in our environment, that are in our foods or that we are exposed to, can pass this thing called the blood-brain barrier and actually make their way into the brain, causing inflammation, causing disease, causing neurodegeneration, which is the degeneration of neurons, and then of course causing all of those behavior problems, conditions, diseases that we later diagnose. And for me, managing what gets across the blood-brain barrier has been an incredible passion of mine, not just because I'm worried and thoughtful and mindful of my own brain, but because I'm raising 5. I have 5 amazing human beings. My oldest is 21, and then I have a 20, a 17, I have a 16, and I have an 8-year-old. And I am committed to raising their brains well and to raising their brains as healthfully as possible. So some of the things I think about is, as a gatekeeper to my home, I get to determine what comes across my threshold. And I don't always get to determine what goes into their mouth, because they are school-aged kids and there are vending machines, and 4 of my 5 kids have driver's licenses. But if I practice holistic living in my home, I can be a steward of the message of health. And Arbon allowed me to be that steward, both by building a business as well as by being an advocate for my own family. What impressed me the most was that Arbon has a list of 2,000 not allowed ingredients in their products. Y'all, I don't know if you know this, but the FDA outlaws and bans 11. When I first started Arbon 16 years ago, that list was at 9. So in 16 years, the FDA has added 2 ingredients to the do not allow list. And I don't expect the FDA to manage the damage for my family. That is my job. But I am mindful that there is a government complex, there is a medical complex, there is a pharmaceutical complex, and there is a food complex. And many of us are on the receiving end of being basically the subject for the test, right? What's the test today? Well, our food supply. It's a radical test on your human physiology. How are you going to end up at the end of your life? Are you going to have thrived through that test, or are you going to be the subject of disease? So I want to talk to you about something that has been a fascinating topic for me for decades, and that is the topic of mushrooms. And so I want you all to know that I've studied traditional neuroscience. I went through and did very traditional practitioner style training, which means you have almost no education on nutrition. You read very few inserts when it comes to pharmaceutical guides. You find out that insurance companies have an incredible reach in medicine, which means they can often dictate what you get to do as a practitioner. Time is always very crunched with patients, which means patient advocacy oftentimes is the last thing you get to do, if you even get to get there at all. And there are incredible incentives for pharmaceutical interventions for disease and illness. Now, I don't know if there's anyone else here on this call that has been in medicine that is a part of what I call the big medical complex, but that was my experience. So I'm speaking for myself. It was very much the experience of my colleagues. And having lived in Asia at 16, I knew there was another way. I had been exposed to Eastern medicine. And I believe that if I broke my wrist tomorrow, I am not going to treat it with mushrooms. I'm going to find an amazing orthopedic surgeon who is going to help, right? But there are so many things you can do to prevent disease and to take control of your own. You're a Jenga blocks. Your body is a Jenga blocks, y'all. Okay, if you've ever played the game Jenga, you know that if you move one piece, you might disturb the set. You move another piece, you might disturb the set a little bit more. But at almost 50 years old, you have to figure, I might have moved a lot of pieces out of my structure, and that can cause a radical amount of instability. My goal is to keep my pieces in place for as long as possible. And that's all the pieces. That's my bones. That is my muscular system. That's my cellular system. That's my neurology. That's my blood system and circulation. That's air in my lungs. Like, I want all the pieces in place, right? Thank you. You're so sweet. Okay, so what I want you guys to know is my job is really advocating that people can keep their pieces in place. Okay, the other piece about this is that I have long since believed that the earth is a wild provision for our needs. Just this wild, awesome, miraculous provision for our needs. And one of the things that I am convinced is a wild provision for our needs is this amazing family, this amazing species of mushrooms, which are a part of the mycelium family. Y'all, mycelium is the most prolific thing on earth. The most prolific thing on earth. There are actually 14,000 species of mushrooms. Like, that's amazing, right? That's amazing. What does that tell you? Well, it should tell you that it's pretty important, right? Like why is this such a prolific, material on the planet? Well, one of the reasons why is because mycelium are responsible for breaking down and biodegrading all things. When a tree falls in the forest, it's mycelium, which is the parent of mushrooms, that's going to break down that tree. When I return to the earth, it's mycelium that's going to break me down. All right. So what does that mean? It means, if you're just thinking about this sort of functionally, mycelium must be really great at breaking things down. That's actually really good news from a cellular perspective, because when I eat a family of mushrooms that is known to be medicinally based, it can break things down. How so? Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about one of my favorite mushrooms. This is reishi. Reishi has been dubbed the mushroom of immortality. Now, I can't promise you any form of immortality, but basically from Eastern culture, what they're basically telling us is that this is a longevity mushroom. And of course, because I'm such a dork, I have to pull studies because I don't want y'all to just think, oh, Mo just lives with all this information in her brain, which a lot of it is stored in there. My husband stores music lyrics. I store neurological studies. But basically what it comes down to is I pulled a couple studies because I want you guys to see what I call science says. And when I read science, I look for vetted science. I look for peer-reviewed science. I read references of papers. So I'm not a gal that's just open up the internet, checking out a meme and going, oh, that's interesting science. That's called reading, not researching, right? So I actually dive into all the references, and I'm looking for 3 or more studies that actually back the hypothesis and the data that's presented from the study I'm going to present to y'all today, okay? So I want to share with you a couple of these little fun things, and I always try to pull really recent studies. But one of the things that I love is I refer back to this amazing study from 2009 in a wonderful journal called Bioorganic and Medicinal Chemistry, and it was conducted in Taiwan. So I love using pieces that are conducted all over the world. And one of the things that they talk about in having shown that reishi can do is reishi can boost immune system function, and get this, it can prevent abnormal blood vessel formations that can lead to life-threatening cancer growth. Like, that's mind-boggling when you think about eliminating or preventing the possibility of blood formation changes that can lead to cancer down the line. A 2011 study just blew my mind where, and this one has been replicated many times, it actually showed that reishi can potentially seek out and eradicate cancer cells in the body. Like it's a seeking, like a heat-seeking missile that's looking for cancer. That shouldn't be surprising to us at all, because remember what I mentioned, right? Like when I go back to the earth, it'll be mushrooms that break me down. Of course, it's mushrooms that are seeking to basically break down things that are harmful inside my body. Well, what do I love about what Arbon did when they put together their 5 mushroom blend? And I've studied every mushroom blend available because I love to know. I mean, with 247 different medicinal mushrooms available with science backing all of them, I want to know what mushroom powders people are putting together. And at Arbon, they launched a mushroom powder, and one of the ingredients that they added, or mushrooms they added, was reishi. And that just said to me, like, they get it. Arbon gets it. This is one of those all in. We are focused on health, and we're focused on cellular repair. So let's move on to the second one that Arbon put in their mushroom blend. They put shiitake. And what I love about shiitake is that there are several studies, both in humans as well as in animals, that actually show that shiitake is in and of itself a tumor fighter. There's actually a fantastic study that came out in 2011 that showed that shiitake is also fantastic at reducing inflammation in the body. And that study was replicated again in 2019. There's 6 studies from 2023. If you don't know this and you really want to geek out with me, you should know that the Johns Hopkins Institute of Mushroom Research has been back online since 2017. So yes, big medical schools are now studying mushrooms too. And can I tell you why they stopped? And I want you guys to know this is not my personal opinion. Big Pharma saw that this was a big threat. And that's just the truth. Mushrooms are prolific and inexpensive. And that is not a great business plan when you are fighting for profit share in disease. And I love to dialogue with people. So if I said something that kind of triggered you, please feel free to have a conversation with me, because I understand that there is a place for pharmaceutical care, but there is a place for healing from the planet, from what God gave us on this green earth. And I believe so wholeheartedly in being able to make sure that every human who has a disease has access to treatments on both the spectrum, whether it be pharmaceutical or naturopathic. And mushrooms are healers. Don't ever think for a second that that isn't the truth, okay? So let's talk a little bit about the inflammation piece. We know that shiitake is a massive player in reducing inflammation. And we know that inflammation is basically linked to just about every single modern disease. It doesn't matter, Alzheimer's disease, autism disease, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, inflammation is a factor. So here Arbon is putting shiitake as an inflammation assistant in this mushroom powder. And on top of that, they've got the mushroom of immortality reishi. And they could have chosen many other different, they could have chosen oyster mushroom or porcini. There's all kinds, white button. There's all kinds of different mushrooms that they could have chosen from. So let's talk about number 3, because this is a really hot topic right now. And that is anything that can help with blood sugar regulation. I've seen a couple different data sets, and to be honest, I'm not sure which one's accurate. But there is a set of data that says that about 98% of people in America actually experience what is considered like a blood sugar, I'll just say the blood sugar system, the system that regulates glucose in their body is out of balance. Okay, I don't want to say that they have a condition on the diabetes spectrum, but I just want to say that they have a glucose condition that is not aiding in their health. The other data set that I've seen is that it's up to 95%. Either way, whether it's 2% of the people that don't have a blood sugar regulation problem or 5% of the people that don't have it, y'all, that's too small of a margin. That means that 95% of the people, at least or better, in our nation are having some type of dysregulation in their circulating blood glucose and in how insulin is being sent to the cells in their body. That's a problem. Well, how do we manage that problem? Y'all, it's food. It is food. I don't know if you know this or not, but high fructose corn syrup goes right to the liver. It doesn't even go into the bloodstream. Like, it is attacking a vital organ of which you get one for your whole lifetime. This is not an organ you can disease unintentionally, let alone intentionally. And yet high fructose corn syrup is buried and hidden in foods on store shelves everywhere in this country. So when I think about blood sugar regulation, I think about what are ways that I can manage the damage from foods that I don't even know these types of ingredients are hidden in, especially when I have a very clean diet in general. I've been in Arbon for 16 years. I've been studying brain health for 30. Well, one way is by teaching my body the introduction of cellular foods that will break down, foods in my body that are actually causing harm. Like, I'm trying to keep it the girlfriend's guide to the brain. So I'm trying to keep it like as basic as possible. But in other words, for me, mushrooms are about cellular repair, right? And one of the things I love is that there's a study that actually found that maitake mushroom was most beneficial in animal studies and in human studies in people who were already suffering from insulin resistance and already had diabetes, which means that you're not too far gone if you already are experiencing an insulin condition or you already have diabetes. Adding something like maitake can actually help with blood sugar regulation. And that's a big deal, because if you're studying Alzheimer's at all, or if you've been affected by Alzheimer's at all, or you have a decent neurologist who's working with someone you love that has Alzheimer's, they know that Alzheimer's is, in our nomenclature, the way neuroscientists refer to it, at least any neuroscientist worth a salt, Alzheimer's we call type 3 diabetes. Like, we're not calling it Alzheimer's in my field. We're calling it type 3 diabetes. So here's this powerhouse maitake. It's also amazing for blood pressure. And that's exciting, right? Because we know that we need to be able to speak to the brain with blood, because blood brings oxygen, and oxygen is life for the brain. So now let's talk about lion's mane, since we talked about the brain so much. Lion's mane, and it's a beautiful mushroom. It looks literally like a lion's mane, and that's why they call it that. It's this big prolific mushroom. But one of the things about lion's mane that I love is it's really sort of the neuroscientist's go-to for cognition, for memory. We know there's so many studies about lion's mane and Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease. We know that when given in rat studies, which, y'all, if you are not a fan of animal research, I understand that. I know that it can be controversial, but if you've ever taken a Tylenol or a Motrin, or if you wear a sweater, or if you wear plastic glasses, or, you know, you've got earrings, whatever it is, that that thing has most likely been tested in some way on an animal, right? If it's going to go in your body or on your body. At Arbonne, they don't do any animal testing, but we can still benefit from the knowledge of many animals and many data sets. And one of the data sets I love is a data set that actually showed that in mice, it actually reduces memory loss. That's the mushroom lion's mane. So when they study it in mice, they can turn around and apply it to humans. And one of the things we know from neuroimaging is that lion's mane will actually regenerate neurons in the hippocampus. And the hippocampi are involved in memory. They're involved in short-term memory. So what y'all are doing right now is called short-term memory. You're going to take a few bits of information that are meaningful to you, that are relevant to you, that maybe you got emotionally excited about. Maybe you have a diabetes condition. Maybe you have someone with Alzheimer's. That's going to link the hippocampus to the amygdala. Those two regions of the brain are going to talk to each other and go, oh, that was cool. I liked that. I need to hold on to that nugget. And the hippocampus is then going to transfer that to long-term memory. And you're going to hold on to that nugget later. You're going to forget about 80% of the things that I say, especially if it's not emotionally evocative, but you can thank your hippocampus for that. Well, what happens if your hippocampus is diseased? Y'all, if you know anybody that has Alzheimer's disease or has mild cognitive impairment or has dementia or had a stroke, you know exactly what that means behaviorally. It means that they can't remember where they are, let alone who you are. This is devastating. It is literally why I study the brain. It is 100% why I study the brain, is I want to be able to help people remember the life they lived. I'm passionate about that. And here's this little beauty from Mother Nature called lion's mane that the data just talk about: reducing depression, reducing anxiety, reducing inflammation, reducing stress on the hippocampus. So I geek out on lion's mane. I'm so proud of that little mushroom. It's so funny to like become so emotionally attached to these species on Earth, but I'm so grateful that they exist and that they can all be put in this little powder that I can then put in my greens drink and I can enjoy it in my clean tox tea at night. And then I can get the incredible benefits. I also want to tell you, okay, I'm just going to tell you right now, because I've already geeked out on mushrooms and lion's mane for a minute. If you're experiencing menopause, I want you to know that menopause, I can speak from truth, and I should probably bring my husband in here right now to speak his truth. The menopause is not easy. Well, guess what they did? There was a 2010 study of women in menopause, and they actually found that eating cookies that contained lion's mane, if they ate one cookie daily for 1 month, it helped reduce reported feelings of irritation and anxiety. I don't know if you've ever had the Arbon cookie dough made from the Arbon protein or one of the Arbon cookies, but y'all can sprinkle a little bit of mushroom powder in there, and then you can just ask your partners, you know, a month later, how have I been? Have you noticed anything different? And I just love that, because you know what? A cookie a day could keep you from, you know, divorcing your loved one. I mean, menopause isn't easy. So, okay, let's go on to the very last mushroom, and that's chaga. Okay, and you know what? Someone said, where do I get these cookies? Somebody makes sure that she gets that amazing recipe for the Arbon cookie dough or the Arbon cookies, because they are very delicious. You can put them in your protein bites too. You can literally put the mushrooms in all kinds of Arbon things, but I thought that was pretty cute with the cookies. We also know, I should tell you, that lion's mane is involved in reducing stroke. And also, this is really cool, we know from some of the traumatic brain injuries, Mindy mentioned that I studied veterans' brains, and these are veterans who have a traumatic brain injury from combat or from IED explosions. And I also studied NFL football players. We know that by putting them on lion's mane, we can actually regenerate neurons in diseased locations. That is fascinating. It is fascinating. And why does that matter so much? Well, because traumatic brain injury affects every element of a human's life: sleep, financial management, emotional regulation, intimacy. It can do, you know, functional things as well, like speech and movement. But man, to love someone that has a TBI and to know that a little bit of mushrooms can go a long way. And y'all can read up on the science, and you can find out dosing specific to your loved ones if you want to treat someone medicinally or work with a naturopath. But if you are dealing with any of these conditions, you know that you're just blown away by the power of mushrooms. At least that's what I hope that you feel at the end of this call. So the last one in the Arbon mushroom blend, and actually one of my favorites that Arbon put in it, because they could have put cordyceps in it. Cordyceps is a very, very popular mushroom, but I think they know that Arbon clients and Arbon consultants drink so much fizz that we don't need any more energy. And cordyceps is like the energy mushroom. So instead, Arbon chose chaga. And what I love about chaga is it's become very, very popular. It's involved in helping to reduce oxidative stress on cells, and that's a big part of preventing disease, all kinds of disease. But one of the things I love about chaga, and I have to read specifically because I always want to get this exactly right, but this particular mushroom species contains massive amounts of a natural black pigment known as melanin, which is high in terms of its antioxidant score. In fact, chaga has the highest ORIC score, which that's a measurement of antioxidant potency, if you're not familiar with what an ORIC score is, of any superfood in existence. Like, thank you, Arbon, for knowing the data and the science behind this incredible product. What that basically means is it's going to keep the DNA in your cells from getting damaged. Now, Arbon's not going to tell you that, mushrooms are the cure to all things. Mo Boger's not going to tell you that mushrooms are the cure to all things. But I'm going to tell you this. Arbon has a powerful product. And mushrooms, I believe, are the beginning of a new space in medicine that was an old space in medicine before we became so westernized that we forgot that the earth is fuel and food for our body. Our food production changed more in the last 50 years than the human's body's needs have changed in the last 10,000. Let that settle in. Your body doesn't even recognize some of the foods that you consume. In fact, some of the foods that we consume are simply food-like substances, or some of the foods we consume are actually enemies to our body from the moment they make their way into our mouth, like disease-causing enemies to our bodies. And then we wonder why we're tired and why we're grumpy and why we're overweight and why we have wrinkles and why, our kids have attention issues. Give a kid a Pop-Tart, give a kid a protein shake, ask their first grade teacher whether a food affects attention, the brain, behavior. This is not actually neuroscience. So much of this is common sense, but I like to think about going back to a time when there was the most common sense in our nation. And it was a time about 80 years ago when chicken was a Sunday night food, not an every night food. When apples were this big, not this big. When every piece of food would be recognizable. And one thing I love to tell myself is mushrooms grew in my grandma's garden and they grow in mine. And if they grew when grandma was raising babies, that's a food I can get behind. And so one of my food rules I borrowed from Michael Pollan, he says, if your grandma doesn't recognize it as food, don't eat it, right? And it's a great little rule to remember. And you guys, we have thousands and thousands and thousands of years. We have early writings that actually date back to 2000 AD in ancient civilization that show mushrooms were medicine and food and fuel then. There is no reason why we cannot take advantage of that now. And I'm so grateful that y'all decided to plug in on this call and to geek out with Mo Boger on mushrooms. People always say to me, how can you talk for 25 minutes on mushrooms? I'm like, oh my gosh, I could keep going on, but I'm going to zip it, lock it, and stick it in my pocket. I'm just going to say thank you for your time and your attention today. I'm so excited about this product. I'm excited about what it means for you in your life. I can tell you the most common question I get is, how do I use it? Basically, I use a quarter of a teaspoon in my Clean Tox tea every night. My Clean Tox tea is an Arbon product that's basically like a first responder for my cells. It's wonderful for my liver. It's wonderful for my kidneys. It helps support the clean detoxification process of those major organs in my body. So I like to add a little bit of that mushroom powder in there. That's about half a dose of what Arbon recommends for a day, so that those first responders can also spread the mushrooms all around, because I want mushrooms reducing inflammation here and killing cancer cells here. And, just I just like to think about them as just little scrubbing bubbles, right? So that's how I use it. But I will also put the other quarter teaspoon of mushrooms in my greens, in my matcha, in my protein shake. There's no bad way to use them. I think the only thing is to not recognize the power of these products. And if you're an Arbon ambassador, you should speak from the rooftops about mushrooms. And if you're an Arbon client, I hope you feel so excited about what Arbon has done in launching this product. And obviously, if you have really specific questions about studies or about books or about documentaries, you can ask me and I will share all that with you. But if you totally became inspired by the study of mushrooms and you're like wanting to be a mushroom geek, you've got to watch a documentary called Fantastic Fungi. So at this point, I've completely geeked out so hard. I'm gonna have to turn in my cool card, but I just want to tell you guys thank you. And Mindy, I love you and I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much, Mo. I'm gonna have to listen to that over and over and over again because I want to be able to retain like more than just one thing about each one of those incredible mushrooms. We just wanted to thank you so, so much for your time. Like so invaluable information that will help us help more people. And I wanted to ask if you would put your charity in your Instagram story today. So those who are so thankful for your brain and all of the information that you shared. If they have a heart to give back to the children who are hungry, we know you just came back from a very, very poor neighborhood, and we're helping to give back. Maybe they want to click on that link and give back too. So that would be an easy way for them to find it. So yeah,
I would
so
love to do that. I'd be so grateful for y'all. Just so you know, it's a luxury to talk about mushrooms after coming back from a nation where most of these babies won't have eaten in 2 to 3 days. And I get to have the benefit of cellular healing, plus electricity and running water and pretty curtains. So if you do feel called, there is no donation too small. 9 cents feeds a human, literally 9 cents. So I will absolutely put that link up. And Mindy, I pray that you'll do the same so that we can continue to get the word out and we can just feed as many humans as possible. Someone
awesome.
said, well, what's the talking point about your guys' organization that you're supporting? I said, the talking point? And they said, yeah, what's the talking point? And I said, they're starving humans. Like, that's the talking point. I don't have to know more. I'm called to serve, and anything makes a difference. So, love you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your time. You guys, thanks for hopping on. I'll post a recording in my Instagram story today because I know a lot of people are asking. And I just wanted to thank you again from all of us, from the bottom of our hearts, for being able to share your time and your brain and your knowledge with us. We appreciate you so much. So may your guys' day just continue to be blessed, and thank you so much.